Yes, we are up and running. Everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Dhruv in the building, and we also have Shrinivas Rao joining us. KSR, absolute pleasure to have you on. We were speaking off air as well of how we always refer to you on this show. Your tweets and how you sort of document the rise of franchise cricket in particular in the country via the numbers and the scale of it is something that truly is a major reference point for us. So thanks for coming on the show. I
Pleasure is
hope this is the
absolutely
first of
mine. Thank
many.
you, both of you. Thank you so much. I look forward to sharing some whatever.
Drew, isn't this cool to have KSR on? The number of times we've referred to him on the show, and the number of times we've pulled up his tweets and shared them on screen, and all of that to have him now chatting with us ahead of a big year for franchise cricket in the country is good fun.
No, it is. And firstly, lovely to meet you again, finally, KSR, after many years. And as Sumit said, following the tweets is just one aspect, but we've enjoyed the coverage of the overall growth of the franchise business model. And we keep telling people that if you want to really study the franchise business model in cricket in India, follow your Twitter feed, follow most of the reporting that you've done, and I think that's been a big conversation that we have a lot over the years. That I think you're probably one of the only journalists, if not the only journalist, that we feel really has got the grasp and understands the growth of this new franchise phenomenon. And going right from the olden days to Ranji and club cricket and age group state cricket until this new beast of franchise sport. So from your point of view, I mean, does it has it been a great evolution even from covering cricket like it has been for fans like us?
Thank you for the kind words, Dhruv. Yes, it's been a great learning curve. I considering where I come from and what I used to do in cricket. I mean, kind of what my interests were and how it all kind of began to evolve post 2007 and 2008. It's been a wonderful learning curve. I'll give you a small example, right? I mean, Ranji Trophy, domestic cricket, first class cricket per se, used to be everything from a professional standpoint. Because international matches were never far and few. Once in a while, probably we would get an opportunity, to tour. And yes, if we were doing good work, we would get the opportunity to travel abroad, watch matches on, test matches on tours, which is priceless, right? I mean, and but that was the world we lived in. Like, for example, for me, the first time I traveled to England to cover a test series was in 2007. And in those years, I had traveled for other tournaments, but to cover a test series in England was just something else. It was an experience of a lifetime, the first time I went there for a test series. So, but this work revolved around cricket, essentially the game. So what exactly did 2000 happened, differently in 2007-8 was that it brought other aspects of the game until then, which were only peripheral and which never really kind of, were part of the day-to-day routine exercise, from a game's ecosystem perspective. Suddenly, overnight, they were part of the ecosystem, and suddenly we had to look at it with a renewed interest and, kind of try and see if we could learn something out of it. And as I said, being just cricket reporters meant we had to go the extra yard to learn new things.
It's probably taken the media. I would say the media has taken to it a lot quicker because we often have conversations that a lot of administrators, coaches, former players still. I mean, would it be fair to say are a bit in denial about the growth of franchise sport and franchise cricket? You start having narratives of resting players, about player availability, and I just feel that, with the player salaries that have come in, that's another topic that we talk a lot about on the show. Are there still like at least five, 6 out of 10 people that haven't fully understood this entire, as I said, new phenomenon of franchise sport and the business of franchise sport in India?
I personally think that the pace at which the game has moved, the narrative has not changed at that pace, right? The narrative is lacking. Somebody who's documenting what are we doing right now? If you look at people like us, whether it's your colleague, you, me, what are we doing? We are in a space where we are documenting a transition, right? We are not in a phase where we can say this is the end game. Like, today, after 105 years of NFL, which is the granddaddy of all sports leagues anywhere in the world, a New York Times in US, or a Wall Street Journal can put a finger and say where it all began and how things turned a circle, right? I mean, where how NFL has evolved over decades, right? Like, you're talking about a 15-year-old league here, and what are we witnessing? We, as individuals documenting this space, we're witnessing a transition. Perhaps the generation after us or the generation after theirs is probably going to settle down and say, okay, this is the kind of product that we were looking at being built over the last 25, 30 years. And now finally, like, we are in a position to say, all right, this is what began in 2007, 8. But today, as of today, I think our job is to document. And from there, I'll answer the second part of your question where you asked me about, 5 to 6 people in every 10, how they would probably look at this space, right? See, I am a journalist, right? Let's say, media, right? What is my job here? My job is to document a, a process that is in place already and how it is doing for the current and the future generations to understand and learn from it, right? My job is to document it in whichever way I can. I propose the format. So my job is not to put a finger and say whether this product is workable or it's not workable. There is a thin line that separates it. My job is not to pass a judgment over what is good, what is bad. My job is to document the developments. That is first, and then of course, as you learn, and spend some time understanding a subject, then obviously you probably get, build that brain for yourself where you start to form an opinion inside your mind. But that takes time. That's number one. That's why I have a problem with people who say IPL is pajama cricket, franchise cricket is pajama cricket, and this is not cricket. I mean, you'll see a lot of old timers who loved the game for what it is and served it well, of course, no doubts about it whatsoever. They served the game very well, but you'll find them saying that this is pajama cricket and this is not real cricket is test cricket. I don't think we are anyone to, determine what is pajama cricket and what is real cricket. It is the consumer who is paying money. At the end of the day, IPL or franchise cricket, the bottom line is it is selling. So somebody out there and selling like nothing else, right? So somebody out there is paying serious money to consume this. So who are we to say what is real cricket and what is not real cricket? I think that is where the difference lies, and we need to respect people's choices. And I think the IPL has proved that it is a product is that is being consumed like none other. And I would like take it up. I keep saying this that pre-turn of the century, Bollywood was India's greatest export to the West, and post-turn of the century, IPL replaced Bollywood. Right?
True, true. And has that growth cycle, I mean, we know this growth has been unprecedented because, as you rightly said, in such a short 15-year league, we're already having conversations about private equity investment. We're having conversations about NBA players investing in teams. We're having conversations about 95 crore salary caps, cap space management. And, you know, we feel, and I'll be very keen to get your perspective again from a journalistic standpoint, that and again, just choosing my words carefully, are too many people delusional about two things? One, that it's the consumer that decides, as you rightly said, but more the macro economic reality that, number one, professional athletes play to earn salaries to pay their bills for an economic cycle. I think for too long, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the mindset of playing for your public sector team, for playing for your local club to a Ranji team, is history. I mean, it is still very important. That is our grassroots ecosystem. But the overall understanding, and that's how leagues like the NFL or anything in the West works. So, are too many people a little cut away from reality? And when we see people like Rahul Dravid say that wouldn't want Indian players to focus too much on franchise cricket because it could destroy our Ranji ecosystem like it's done to the West Indies players. Is there just a little bit? I mean, are too many people cut away from reality?
Think of um, okay. Number one is if you're manufacturing, like this, I keep saying all the time. So sorry if I'm being repetitive here. If you're manufacturing the cap of a pen anywhere in the world, all right, and if that cap is not selling in India or in China, you're technically not in global business, right? So likewise, if you are producing any content today anywhere in the world, and if that piece of content is not being consumed in India because China has again closed the doors to you, and if that piece of content is not selling in India, you are literally not in global business, right? So consumption is here, right? Consumption is here. So where do we draw the line and say what is being consumed and what is not being consumed? Okay, there, think of content as the great Indian thali, the traditional Indian thali that we have, right? In a thali, there is rice, there are vegetables, dal, chapatis, but then again there is space for another vegetable. There is everything, but there is space for curd. There is everything, but there is space for papad. There is everything, there is space for pickle, right? There is still some space for chutney. And if you think you've done it all, then there is still some space for mithai. Indian thali, right? आप उसमें कुछ भी add, you can add, you can keep on adding, and there will be space for that little bit extra. That is content. There is space for everything. Now the volume depends on what are you consuming. Chapatis more or rice more or curd more or vegetables more. To each his own, right? So from a content standpoint, there is no line to draw and say what is being consumed and what is not being consumed in in a country like India, where how many things in this country, Dhruv, Sumit, tell me, how many things in this country are a constant? You're talking about a country where every 200 kilometers dialect changes. Forget food habits, right? Even the dialect is not the same. So how many things in this country are static, are void of constant change? Can you think of many things like cricket? I can't, because cinema changes. Cinema changes from one state to another, right? Cinema that sells in Maharashtra is not the same cinema that sells in Tamil Nadu. But cricket sells in Maharashtra the way it sells in Tamil Nadu, right? Only two things in India sell like nothing else: democracy and cricket, right? So it's a rare product. It's a rare product. So who are we to draw the line and say what form should be consumed? And in that, I think when IPL throws up the kind of numbers that it continues to, season after season, I think we as people documenting the narrative should be respectful of the fact. That's number one. I mean, and I think that's where I'll come to the second part of the point that Dhruv was making, where he, used the word delusional. I mean, see, I don't know. At the cost of, I'm trying hard not to be disrespectful of people. Yeah, but as I say, to each his own. When we talking about uh, Rahul Dravid and his choices, right? I mean, let's not forget that Rahul Dravid himself has participated in IPL, and who's not? Even the great Sachin Tendulkar has, and so has Anil Kumble, and so has the Ricky Pontings. Have the Ricky Pontings of the world. Who knows? Probably an IPL happened at this fag end of their careers. Probably when they were still in their prime. How do we know what kind of narrative would we have seen going forward? Probably Rahul Dravid would have retired with as many sixes as Chris Gale.
It's I mean, every year we look at franchise cricket and we wonder this is a big year, but this time I think the stakes are higher than they've ever been, isn't it? Just because of the dynamics of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes. In fact, if you would have asked me less than a year ago from today, if franchise cricket for women would be a reality in India, I would have had serious doubts. Okay, so I am happy to be proved
Mm.
wrong here. Although the challenges that I had envisaged or had foreseen back then, I still maintain that those challenges are going to continue. Challenges are going to continue. See, remember, in 2008 when men's cricket was launched in IPL, franchise cricket through
Mm.
IPL. It took 7 to 8 years for a cocktail of Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni, and Shah Rukh Khan to break even. It took around 8 years. All right, that was as
Mm.
deadly a
Mm.
cocktail as it can get in India. Right, Bollywood, from the perspective of Shah Rukh Khan and a Mahendra Singh Dhoni who had just won the T20 World Cup. Right. So
Yep.
if that took 8 years, your guess and my guess is kind of would be the same on where how long it could potentially take for women's cricket and this ecosystem to break even for the kind of investment that is coming. Now, having
Mm.
said that, I think the branding aspect or the commercial aspect of cricket, which until now was restricted from too many fronts on too many fronts. I'll give you an example. Tell me the last time that you remember FMCG seriously put money in Indian cricket. Hindustan Lever. When was the last time? I can't think of.
Mm.
I can't
Yeah, it's
think
been
of
Yep.
a
the last
while.
time when Hindustan Lever
It's been a long
is
time.
the biggest FMCG giant. The
Correct. Yeah.
biggest
Yep. Yep.
FMCG giant. I can't remember a time, the last time when Hindustan Lever stepped into cricket, except last year when Boost came in as one of the sponsors for Women's T20 Challenge. Okay, so
Mm.
I can't.
Mm.
So, but now with women's cricket coming in, I think FMCG gets a new lease of life from a cricketing standpoint. So many
Mm.
brands that were so I remember Lalit having these chats with Lalit during the time of IPL, where he used to be, it was a constant challenge for Lalit to ensure that brands of a certain identity alone
Mm.
stayed with the IPL. Okay, I don't
Right.
again, as I said, I'm not going to be taking names here, but but I'll give you a larger, a larger thought process that that I'm coming from, where I'm coming from is, it can't be that you get 100 crore sponsor which doesn't really kind of fall in line with the idea of a T20 league, IPL, and yet again probably you would probably get those 100 crores in sponsorship, lose 1,000 crore in valuation, you never know. Right, so you had to be for Lalit, it was extremely important who he associated with, right? And again, today you can look at cricket as gender agnostic. In fact, I just tweeted this a while ago when Alyssa Healy spoke about Harmanpreet Singh in one of the interviews, kind of where she spoke about her run out, and she was very uh,
Cold, brash.
bland and bold in her, yeah, brash in her
Yeah.
thoughts, and
Yeah.
many people couldn't take it. But then the point is, I don't think Alyssa was speaking anything wrong, but then I'll keep that for another
Yeah.
day. The point being
Yeah.
that the game is getting as gender agnostic right now as it could possibly get, and
Mm.
that's why I think the branding game from a T20 franchise perspective is just about opening up, probably, and this is, don't take it as a as it's just an example. I'm just giving you an example. 15 years ago you couldn't have taken Fair and Lovely as a Ponds as a brand ambassador, as a title sponsor of IPL, right? Could you have called
Yeah.
it Ponds IPL? I don't know. I mean, I'm giving you an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Today, when it's
Yeah.
gender agnostic, you can put in so many. I mean, Lux Cozy, Salman Khan dancing on a Lux Cozy ad. Why could it be? Why shouldn't it be a Victoria's Secret coming in, right? I mean, so that's the play that we are
Mm.
going to look at. That's the play. That's the kind
Yeah.
of play we're going to look at. So you don't know. You don't. So I'll give you another example. 1960s. In 1960s, if you remember, Abbas Ali Beg was the first ever cricketer
Correct.
who got kissed on a field while
Yes.
while playing the game, right? And
Yep.
now, if you see, they remade that
Hyderabad.
Cadbury ad
The Cadbury's
where
ad. Yeah.
a
That's correct.
woman is batting and the guy comes running on the field, right? That's very beautiful when you look at it from a commercial perspective and from a commercial and television perspective. In
Mm.
real life, how far we are yet from walking that last mile. This is the space that is going to teach us. This is the space that's going to teach us a lot of things over the next 10 years. So look at it
Yeah.
as a space where The best minds of this country can actually come ideate, and then sky would be the limit. And remember, the catchword here is the best minds. Problem is BCCI doesn't allow that.
Yeah. No,
Not a
I
very
think
inclusive
KSR,
sport.
you correct. I think KSR, you've hit the nail on the head perfectly because when we're now, I mean, we're looking at professional women's sport because the contracts that were just out, the women's auction, those were the highest ever professional salary contracts to any female professional athlete in India ever.
Yeah.
And we know this is the rub on effect of the IPL receiving all this broadcast money, central sponsorship money, and the entire pool is now starting to, come down the pyramid into grassroots cricket and the women's franchise league as well. So it's a credit a lot to these franchises who've decided to invest in it. But, just taking a step back and again, because you very beautifully explained the point on, narrative changing and being realistic about scenarios that the broadcast money is making this difference because, as with any global franchise league, if you don't have an independent broadcaster putting in the money, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. So, has it still taken a long time for
So
people
yes,
in your
yeah.
fraternity to kind of come to terms that the importance the broadcaster is playing in this whole franchise dynamic?
951 crore,
Yeah.
5 years.
So okay, why women's? We'll talk about men's and women's both in this case, right?
Yeah, yeah,
First of all, cricket is a very unique sport.
correct.
No other sport. I mean, cricket is a sport that was probably, is it's a blessing in disguise for television product as a television product, right? Nothing
Correct.
comes close. I mean, look at the sport. I mean, from 1 hour before start of play to it after every six balls, after every dismissal, after every innings break, after
Agree.
every lunch tea thing, it just keeps giving you that much space from a commercial standpoint. So it's a very unique sport. Plus the attire that players wear in this sport allows you so much more space in terms of branding. Look at Vijay Malia's foray into IPL, for example. And I keep saying this all the time that would he have got a platform, um, you know, m- more benefiting than cricket as an ecosystem to pursue surrogate advertising in a country where alcohol cannot be advertised. Could he have got a better platform than cricket to go ahead with his surrogate marketing? So likewise, I'm saying that from a television standpoint, cricket has been an absolute blessing. Now the challenge is, how do you sustain? Because see, remember, your broadcast rights in 2008 for IPL was kind of around $1 billion, okay,
That's right.
which catered to for 10 years.
Ten
It
years.
was
Yeah.
a 10-year deal, right? At that exchange price of the dollar, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Now 10 years later, it literally went to 2.5 billion. Okay,
That's right. Yeah.
2.3 billion, right?
2017. You're right. Yeah.
When it got sold for 16,347
16,000
crore,
crore.
right?
Yeah.
Now another 5 years later, it has gone to 48,000 crore. Okay,
48,000 crores.
like today's value, it's literally $6.5 billion, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Now, are we saying that the number of eyeballs catching the game have tripled and kind of increased 10 times? That's not the case, right? So then why has the
Mhm.
rights value
Mm.
been going up at the pace at which it's been going? So I'll give you an example here. Until now, until recently, or let's say until 5 years ago, what was the business? The business was cricket itself was the product that a broadcaster was buying from a
Yes.
federation, all right,
Correct.
and selling it to the consumer. Over,
Yeah.
let's say you bought the rights for 5 years, you paid X amount of money to buy cricket rights, and you go to your consumer and you say, all right, whatever your subscription charges are, or 100 rupees a month or whatever
Yeah.
for the per annum, right? You sell the subscription and you selling your main product, which is cricket, and earning your investment out of that, right? It's a 5 year,
Right.
10 year rental model that you were looking at. Now today it is still the same. It is the same rental model, except that if you see, the right cycle is narrowing and the price value is expanding, right? Why is that happening? Is because your product, your chief product, which was cricket until now, is not your chief product anymore. What it
Correct.
now
Catalyst.
is, it's a
It's the
byproduct.
catalyst. The catalyst.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Mhm.
So your chief product is now the byproduct. You are using a byproduct to sell
Yes.
every other product of yours, which is
True.
there on the window, right? So
True. Yep.
for that, going forward, and why is the rights window coming, narrowing? It from 10, it became 5. I can tell you that this, before selling the broadcast rights last year, BCCI seriously contemplated whether they should sell this time for 3 years. Okay, but no, I mean, look at EPL. EPL is selling it for 3 years, right?
Correct. Yep.
And why did BCCI not sell it for 3 years? Because India still today, it's like a very unorganized space in terms of traditional linear broadcast. Look at the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. TRAI comes out with a new price list. Cable operators in this country go on a strike.
Of course.
Broadcasters
Yeah.
Yeah.
switch off. There is no respect for the paying public. I mean, it's something
True.
that we got to see firsthand last week, right? So because
Yes.
of this, BCCI thought that 3 years doesn't make sense, because any new party that is coming here to do business with us, it'll take them a year first to actually understand this mad space. So we
Of
can't
course.
do it
Yeah.
for 3 years. Let us stick to 5 years. But 3 years probably is a little too ahead of its time in a country like India. But there is a
Correct.
future here.
Mm,
And why is that? The 3 years is the future here, because technology, the pace at which technology is changing, you cannot afford to block your rights for these many number of years, because you
Of
sell those
course.
rights
exactly.
and 6 months down the line, something else, something new has hit the market, and you are not in a position to capitalize on it, monetize it,
Mm.
right? So for that, the rights window is going to keep getting narrower. I foresee a time where every year the IPL rights are going to be sold and renegotiated after the IPL gets over,
Annual.
right? And annually, and in that, the future that I foresee is macro going to micro, which is what is happening in every other form of media. For example, I'm sure all of you all have been, at some point in time in life, have been newspaper readers, right? Dedicated newspaper readers, whether it's Times of India, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, whatever, right? Everyone, all of us have been. But today, do we wait for a Times of India in the morning to tell us, for the front page to tell us what is happening around the world? No. Information is at our fingertips, right? So chances
Yeah.
are, if you are living in Bangalore or if you are living in Bombay, why exactly would you pick up the day's Times of India? You would pick up a day's Times of India not to understand what President Joe Biden in America is saying in the war between Russia and Ukraine, because that you already know. You are on
Yeah.
Twitter, you are on 100 other platforms, right? You are
Yep.
hanging on to the Times of India because it is telling you what is happening in your backyard. What is the Bombay Municipal
Yep.
Corporation doing in terms of laying out that road in front of your house, right? You want to know that, and that is so. Where exactly media going? Media is going local. From global to, it
Contextual.
is going
Local.
back to local. So
Yep.
media is coming back to where it all began in the first place. Kesari. What was Kesari? Bal Gangadhar Tilak's
Yeah. Paper.
media. This thing that was
Yeah.
newspaper, right?
Yep.
Kesari was about what was happening in that region from a freedom fighters perspective, right? So today, and then from there it went on to become global, where Times of India in this, over the last 50 years told us what is happening around the world. We would read the Times of India to understand what's happening in Russia, what's happening or whether cricket is being played any other part of the world, right? Today we don't need to do that. Today, information is there at our fingertips. We are using the idea of a newspaper to help understand what is happening in our backyard, which is going micro. Every look at that as an example to identify with every form of media, and you will find your answer. Even the business of broadcast, from a media perspective, has to go from macro to micro. Today you have two broadcasters. I'm saying very soon, if not the next light cycle, then the next to next one, you will find this further disintegrating and multiple broadcasters coming into the ecosystem, because at one broadcaster's this thing, it won't be
Mm.
sustainable anymore. So, for example, in 2011, when India played the World Cup, they had Sahara on the jersey. Before that, in 1996, there was Wills on the jersey, right? But today, there is space for a Baiju, there is space for an MPL, or there is space for whatever Adidas is coming or something. There is space for something or the other, right? I mean, that space has increased. Why? Because just Byju's cannot really fill the coffers of Indian cricket the way Indian cricket wants it to happen. So to sustain, they have to kind of further disintegrate and sell, further divide and sell. Look at this from a
Yeah.
broadcast standpoint. Today you have a digital player and you have a linear television player. Now we are in the midst of an argument where we are saying, is linear television going to stand the test of time going forward? How live sport is the only space that has kept appointment viewing alive, right? Appointment viewing, otherwise, for all practical purposes, is dead. Linear television is traditional television, and showing live sport is the only form of appointment viewing that is alive, right? I mean, if you have to watch a match, it'll start at 7 o'clock. You can't start it at 8 o'clock. You can't start it at 6 o'clock. If the match is scheduled to start at 7, you have to be in front of your television at 7. That's appointment viewing. And if not for live sport, it is dead, right? Now, when we
True.
are today discussing the idea of traditional linear television dying, which I can tell you, television will die before print media does. I can, yeah, that's how I look at things. But the
Mm.
point I'm trying to make is that tomorrow, a Mumbai Indians can come forward and bid for the broadcast rights and say, listen, we are ready to pay top dollar for our home matches. Exclusivity. If you want to watch a Mumbai Indians home game, you have to come on MITV. That's it. Subscribe to MITV for 2 months a year, right? Or you
Yeah.
want Chennai Super Kings does the same. Or who knows? Chennai Super Kings and Mumbai Indians come together and jointly bid for the so-called IPL El Clasico, which is an MI versus CSK clash. Every
Yeah.
year,
Ready
twice,
property.
MI and CSK, yeah, every year MI and CSK play two matches, home and away. MI and CSK come together, put a joint bid, and say, boss, you want to watch MI versus CSK exclusive? It is on this platform, right? So
Yeah.
I'm saying the idea is going to keep on evolving. And when I'm saying, giving you these examples, I'm not saying that, this is how it is going to play out. I'm saying that look
Mm.
at the possibilities here. And where is it
Yeah.
all going? Again, it is all going from macro to micro. It's all going
Mm.
local,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I'm
Absolutely.
coming to. I'll give you an example. In
Yeah.
2017, the Star put a consolidated bid of 16,347 crore to take away the IPL broadcast rights, which included television and digital. They
Correct.
did
Yeah.
not tell us, they did not spell it out how much exactly they were putting on paper for digital. They put a consolidated amount. That's it. We
Yeah.
just know 16,300.
Yeah.
So, but I have argued over the last so many years that Star should have looked at the digital perspective back then between 3,500 crore to 4,000 crore. Now, why did I arrive at this benchmark? I arrived at this benchmark because that very year, when the auction was on, Facebook submitted a 3,900
That's
crore
correct.
bid
Yes.
Yes, I
for
remember.
digital,
Yeah.
right? Right. Now, that is, I'm using that as a benchmark because the difference between consolidated and sum of all parts was less than 3%.
Correct.
Less than
Yeah.
3%.
Spot
So,
on.
so that has to be the value, whether Star wants to admit or it doesn't. And Star has made money out of it, no doubts about it. And so, it doesn't matter. And the pandemic really helped their cause in 2020 and
Yeah.
2021. 2020 IPL was really kind of, we had nothing else to do but sit at home and watch television. And IPL really killed it that year, right? So, from that perspective, if you go on to see,
True. Yeah.
I famously heard a story in 2017 where Facebook bid 3,900 crore. Rupert Murdoch famously said to his people in the US, said that if this is true, it's the time has come for me to move out of this business because I nobody will be able to withstand this madness, which is the digital onslaught.
True.
And
Yeah.
why it is
Phenomenal.
happening is because it is today's business, and that is why cricket is a catalyst driving today's big business.
Correct.
Like look at
Today's
uh,
businesses.
Viacom 18. Look at Viacom 18. I gave this an example in I don't know, I was talking to someone. I gave this as an example where I said that your mother is cooking for the family at home, and there are no she's run out of groceries, and she tells Dhruv, go down and get me 2 kgs of potatoes, right? Because I need to cook a
Mm.
meal, right? And Dhruv
Right. Yeah.
runs to the nearby grocery store, buys 2 kgs of potatoes, and along with that, he brings home a scratch card for that evening's game, right?
Yeah.
So
True.
yeah, a match free with 2 kgs of potatoes and 2 kg of onions. I'm just thinking aloud, like, similarly, um your father, you're watching this game with your father, and while you're watching, your father says, listen, I mean, my specs, I need a new pair of glasses, and you have a Titan Plus ad showing on your screen, which is coming with a discount while you're watching the
Yep.
match live. So where is e-retail taking you in this regard, right? And don't forget the fact that you are buying the SIM card to, it's a very vicious cycle. The OTT cycle, the content cycle, is a very vicious cycle. Content
Hmm.
drives subscription, subscription drives revenue, revenue drives content. It's a classic case of what came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah.
So the only way today, if a new OTT player wants to get into this business, there is no quicker way to catch attention than cricket, right? Look at Hotstar and
Yeah.
just go on Google and search for Disney's earnings calls vis-a-vis Hotstar. Back in America, they can give a great Disney narrative on Wall Street Journal's front page. But the bottom line is, here in Hotstar is where, through Hotstar and IPL, is where they get those numbers.
Correct.
When you
Yeah.
like to show that this is where your numbers are coming from, where else but Indian cricket, right? So
Yeah.
think about this going micro to the last mile, and this will not end. Make your mind wander, and it will not stop.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I mean, I would like to sort of switch gears now from the broadcaster, the league, to the franchisees. You touched upon that a little bit as well earlier, and one of the things that Dhruv and I have been chatting a lot about is ownership of teams, right? That is one space that is very very interesting because ownership, the dynamics of ownership, the people that own teams has changed. You've got private equity firms now coming in, obviously now with Gujarat and Ahmedabad coming in, the owners that came in, there was thought that went into picking the teams that they wanted to get. Obviously UP, big sector for Lucknow, and of course CVC Capital, which has a history of owning other sports ventures, coming in to own Gujarat Titans. And now you obviously look at the WPL as well. You've got names that are now experienced, that know how to run operations in this space, coming in and sort of owning
Yeah.
teams. So how do you see this revolution, this change in ownership of teams? And it's very interesting because, like you mentioned, from macro to micro, these teams are in a wonderful space right now because they've got these beautiful pockets that they've occupied, these various regions in the country, and they can go down till the last consumer with that offering. And a lot can change for them very very quickly.
Of course. So I'll give you an example. Rajasthan Royals, last to last year, brought in a company called Redbird, an investment company called Redbird, right? Now Redbird does business
Yeah.
in America with the guy who played Brad Pitt's role. Brad Pitt played whose role in Moneyball? I forget the name. Thank you. I forget the name. So anyway, so Redbird is a big ticket player from a sportsman investment perspective in America. Rajasthan Royals got them on board as a from a
Yeah.
shareholder's perspective. Now compare that. Remember what I'm saying. This happened in the same year as Sanjeev Goenka's RPSG and CVC coming on board in
The same
IPL
year.
as franchise.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
Redbird happened, Financial Times. I mean, I broke the story for the Times of India here in Mumbai, but Financial Times carried it the next day morning. It was big.
Hmm.
It was big, right? FT London saying how IPL as a franchise, from a franchise perspective, has moved to the next level with Redbird coming in, right? The day RPSG and CVC bought franchisees, that Redbird investment looked like Rajasthan Royals had undersold. It
Correct.
literally
Yes.
looked like
Yes.
that, right?
Yep. At a much
Because
lower
when
valuation as well.
exactly,
Yeah.
Exactly. So when RPSG put in $1 billion, and okay, so I'll give you an example. I wrote a piece for the Times of India in the run up to the I play team auction, franchise auction. I said probably in excess of 4,500 crore is how the franchise new franchise is going to sell. Trust me, in the ensuing week, I got a dozen calls from the industry where people were after my life saying, Srini, what have you done? What are you doing? Like, how can you say 4,500? Do you even know what you're saying? Right? And
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
began, the calls were so constant that I literally began doubting what I had written. Like, okay, I mean, have I like kind of, gone a bit overboard here? And when $1 billion came in from a franchise, from one franchisee standpoint, I
Hmm.
was like, where is this game? But today, when you look back at the same $1 billion that Mr. Goenka has bid, and it will appear minuscule.
Of course, yeah.
It will appear
Very true.
minuscule, right? After the
Yep.
sale of new media rights at 48,500 crore, those
Yeah.
$1 billion appear like because you own that property for perpetuity, right? And
Correct.
so to give you an idea where this is saying. And by the way, let us compliment the guys whoever worked on the number for CVC Capital, okay, to put in that figure needs
Mm.
to get a bonus of a lifetime. Trust me on that. Because you look
Of
at
course,
that
yeah.
figure, 5,600 crore, it's not just a winning figure. That figure is just above water level from what the other bidders, you know, in
Yeah.
in uh, in the
Optimum.
fray put. Yeah, and yet it doesn't go overboard, which is basically, literally close to around 15, right? I mean, yeah, Sanjeev Goenka's bid was what, $1 billion, right?
A billion
7,000 odd
dollars, yeah.
crore,
Yep.
right?
7,000
And
odd
yeah,
gross, yeah.
and yeah, so 1,500 crore less, literally 1,500 crore less from the highest bid.
Yeah.
So it was a magical number. It is an absolute magical
Yeah.
number. So
No, and
again,
KSR, I
to
mean, yeah, I think you've broken that down beautifully in terms of how you've explained the entire changing media dynamic, new media dynamic, and to add to Sumit's point on private equity and new franchise ownership, it'll be now very interesting to hear your perspective that how much of an understanding is in the market with this new dimension with private equity valuation, CVC capital now potentially probably looking to dilute some equity, bring in new investors, and considering because cricket is still greatly controlled in India by state associations. Again, choosing my words carefully, old timers or people we have in associations, and then on the one hand you have this very modern savvy private equity corporate consulting model coming in here. So how do the two meet, and how do the two sides even coexist if now and going forward?
I I remember reading an editorial piece, when I started off new as a journalist. I mean, I used to consume everything, and I remember an editorial piece on geopolitics where a great editor and a very big name in his opinion column had written, allowing America to intervene in talks between India and Pakistan is like allowing an elephant into your living room. No matter how friendly the elephant is, it's going to leave your room in a mess because it's an elephant.
Correct.
Whichever way it
It is
turns,
like that.
is going to break something in your room. So
True.
until 2007, 2008, BCCI, Indian Cricket, was the who were the pallbearers, who were the stakeholders of this game. The patrons of this game were the 30 odd members who were state associations. Whatever would happen in Indian cricket would be at the beck and call. Everything would happen because these 30 members were pushing it, right? Shashank Manohar, the former president of the BCCI, once famously told me, Arey Shrinivas, it doesn't matter what outsiders think. At the end of the day, what we 30 members think is all that matters, right? So now, why did I give you the
Perfect.
example of that editor and his opinion piece? Is because in 2007-8, when BCCI allowed corporate India to step into their boardroom and buy franchisees for perpetuity, become stakeholders for perpetuity, BCCI allowed that proverbial elephant to come into your room. No matter how friendly that elephant was, it is going to leave your living room in a mess. Wantingly, no, because it is an elephant and it is the nature of the beast because of the size that it carries, right? So when you ask me about private equity players coming in, India's largest corporate entity coming in, the Vijay Malias of the world at that time, for what they brought into the Shah Rukh Khan, the biggest movie star in this country, coming in. At that time, they were all elephants walking into this room, which would stay here forever, and therefore BCCI's room would never be the same and would never be controlled by BCCI alone, because again you have these elephants in the room. But where do you put a stop and say this is where the size of the elephant ends? You got an Indian elephant, probably, who knows, tomorrow there might be an African elephant walking into that room. Where have the banks come in yet? We see one private equity player and we are shaken. Let's wait for a JP Morgan, a Morgan Stanley, a Bank of America. you know the sky is the limit. I'm assuming when these people start walking in, and we really don't know where we can put a finger and say, now you put a full stop. You know what I can tell you? Why is Big Bash not selling franchises? Have you ever thought about it?
So they
Why
can
is Big
maintain
Bash?
more control.
No, because they know that the day they sell the franchise, Indians will buy all of them.
True. Yeah, that's also true.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It
No,
is
as it's
the fact.
happened in the
Straightforward.
other
Yeah.
franchise leagues. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Asia will
Absolutely
buy
makes
all the
sense. Yeah.
franchises. Tomorrow, when you sell the franchises, who else but a Mumbai Indians and Chennai Super Kings and
correct.
Rajasthan Royals and Kolkata Knight Riders are going to go and buy the
Yeah,
franchises there? So they,
just as
that
it's
goes
happened
without
in the
Mumbai
other
saying.
leagues.
Indians.
That Exactly. Now they have. See, I can tell you today, Big Bash is struggling. It's a great, great league, high quality league. But the point is, it is financially struggling. At some point in time, Cricket Australia has to take a call whether they need to privatize it, and that's where they are stuck between the devil and the deep sea. Because on one hand, while they are struggling for finances, they still know that it is their baby and they can play around with it the way they want. Tomorrow, if they want to privatize it, they put out a tender, and trust me, you and me are people here waiting to take a guess who's going to come and put the top dollar. So, sky is the limit in terms of who exactly can actually come to own this space. I'll give you an example. Tomorrow, from a soft power perspective, okay, why couldn't the government of a country, a Saudi Arabia, let us say, wants to do business with India over the next 50 years, okay, and says, Saudi Arabia says, listen, for me, India is the ultimate business market in the place. If I want to sell a product, I want India to be buying my product, right? Let us say I have the last oil well left with me, and I see doing that business with India alone, because India is still going to consume oil for the next 30 years, because this is the kind of consumption that is available in the country. Okay, I'm just thinking aloud. Consider it as blabbering. Okay, what stops Saudi Arabia from investing in a IPL, in a sports franchise here? Because it allows them to use sport as a soft power in terms of dealing with this country. Look at Aramco. Today, Aramco has come and sponsored the orange cap and the purple cap, right? Do you know this was Lalit Modi's dream when he envisaged, sponsorship categories? It was his dream someday to sell the orange and the purple cap, right? So today the orange and purple cap went at whatever 65 odd crore, and that was a dream come true, right? Now Aramco comes in, promises that kind of money, then Saudi tourism comes in, replaces one of the existing
They're
official
already here.
sponsors. Saudi tourism is here in
Yep.
IPL, right? They are already
Yep.
here. So where is it?
Yep.
So where exactly do you think this can stop? This can just keep growing, right? Tomorrow the Saudi, whatever, the king, his private investment firm can say, listen, I mean, I've got my businesses in India, or that is a destination where I want to see businesses happening. So why not look at it from a cricketing standpoint? Because here is a product. This is the ultimate product. In India, this doesn't just help me do business, but I can use cricket as a chief catalyst to identify with my consumers where every other product of mine is concerned. So when you have a Saudi billionaire here, you have a Qatar investment authority that might want to look at this space. Sky's the limit. Some Vivo phone came here and put 2,400 crores to put as title sponsor of the IPL. You know, so
Yeah.
where is this heading? And remember, tomorrow esports is going to be big in this country. Esports is going to be kill everything else. It's literally going to kill everything else. And when that sets in, when that I mean, you lead a separate podcast on that. But so I'll
Hmm.
the day this all begins to open up, sky's the limit. So you can't, Dhruv, Sumedh, you can't put a finger on anything on the map right now and say this is what it is. No, every
Yeah.
day, stay waiting, keep waiting to wake up every morning with a new surprise. I mean, that's the world that we are heading into.
Yeah, and,
Wow.
and and that I think
Dhruv,
that's
I want to
something
get
we
your
talk a
thoughts on
lot
this.
about. That no, it is, and I guess that's the reality that sport and cricket
Hmm.
now is business. It's not just a game. It's a marketing
Yeah.
catalyst. It's a platform. It's a soft power, hard power. So I think that's something which I guess European football understands now very well, as you rightly spoke about the Saudi investment authorities. I mean, that, as you said, is another conversation altogether. And that's where Sumit and I keep grappling with this, and KSR, we keep coming back to the same point that how many people in India have grasped this reality? That's the point, and have enough people grasp this reality.
It's a learning process, right? I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have
Yeah.
probably I've been blessed to have spent time with some of the the top guys in the industry who have been kind enough to give me a peek into their ecosystem. And from a cricket standpoint, it's been a learning exercise, right?
Yeah.
So I think I need to pass it on to someone else who can probably pass it on to someone else, and there has to be this urge to want to learn new things, which I feel is missing. I look at it from a media standpoint. I'm sorry to say, but most of them who are really accomplished, they are just happy, going to a game, watching the game, coming back and documenting the game, what they saw. I'm saying that why would somebody want to read you when that game is being consumed live? See, Test cricket
Yeah.
15 years ago, there was a lot of things would happen around Test cricket, right? I mean, today look at India, Australia, the build up. You're looking at Test cricket not just from those 5 days of players playing against each other, the build up in the pitch, the storytelling, whatever the history behind an India Australia rivalry, what is happening there in terms of this rivalry building up ahead of the first Test. There's so much to talk about. That's why you look forward to some news reporter who's out there at the field, a brilliant writer, who you can look forward to every single day, who's telling you about that one phase, one passing phase of a test match, probably the session between lunch and tea, and how kind of while you were catching a nap, a very beautiful spell happened between Todd Murphy and Cheteshwar Pujara. I'm just giving an example. You want to read it because you love it. But that said, media, I don't think media is still stuck and thinks that that is the only thing waiting to be consumed. No, that's not the case, right? Today, Sumedh and Dhruv and thousands of people like y'all want to consume cricket even from an industry standpoint, right? Want to see, I've been saying this, doing your engineering or doing your MBA is not enough today, right? You have to figure out what is the right sector that is going to be a futuristic sector over the next 25 years. That's how you need to choose your subjects and choose your line of whatever academics. You need to choose your academics in a manner that whatever you are consuming today is in line with the development, and it's line with how things are moving forward over the next 2 decades, 3 decades, right? That's how you will be able to form a career around whatever you are. Same for sport. Today, you go and get an MBA degree. You also need to understand what is happening from an industry standpoint, right? And it is the media that needs to document and put that narrative out somewhere, which I don't think is happening. In
Yeah.
India, you are talking about a product which is being consumed right now from Dalal Street to Wall Street, but your average reporter is still stuck with Ranji Trophy, knowing that BCCI itself is putting out live scores by the second, right? So
Yeah.
you- I think the time has come for the media also to probably. I'm not saying everybody tomorrow should leave cricket and go and do something else. No, but there has to be a good chunk of storytellers who need to be documenting this. I'll give you an example. In 2020, the first year of pandemic, NBA, you Google, NBA was stuck midway, right? When the pandemic struck, the NBA was had stopped midway. And then the authorities emptied Disneyland
Correct. The
and
bio
took the
bubble.
remaining part of the NBA. Yeah, they created a biosecure bubble inside Disneyland and completed
Yeah.
the NBA. Trust me, I
Wow.
was busy reading the reports on AP, AFP, Reuters. These international news agencies made it look like NBA had moved to heaven and earth to actually do what they were doing inside Disneyland, or at least that's how they presented it to us, right? Now think about it this way: in India, BCCI, same year, middle of the pandemic, we don't empty a Disneyland. What we do, we take an entire tournament from one
Operation. Yeah.
country,
Move it.
in the bank
Yeah.
in the middle of a pandemic, shift it to another country.
To another
This is
country.
an this is this is a lesson that needs to be documented in classroom from an operations and logistics standpoint. If you are
100%.
studying operations, if you're studying logistics, you just need to understand how this was pulled off, right? Half your job is
Yeah.
done learning how things are. Um, uh, Today's reporter is, average reporter is like, अरे मुझे क्या लेना देना है, मैं तो जाऊंगा क्रिकेट देखूंगा, आई एम हियर टू वॉच क्रिकेट, आई एम हियर टू टॉक अबाउट क्रिकेट.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that
Mhm.
mindset needs to change. You
Needs to
need to
change.
look at things from an industry standpoint, and probably, and I'm very confident that the coming generation is going to start looking at it that way, because again,
Yeah.
that yeah.
That's what we talk a
Yeah.
lot about,
Yeah.
isn't it, Sumit? That, staying up with the times, being
Exactly.
realistic, keeping up. And I think this super chat we've had has been perfect because we've looked at all the various dynamics from media to changing ownerships, changing operations and logistics as well. So I think that, no, it is fascinating. And who better than you, KSR, that to keep the pulse on all these changes and, new dynamics. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think apart from your Twitter feed, there aren't too many platforms where we get to discuss conversations like broadcast rights and private equity and salary caps and, revenue plowed back into the sport going forward, women's sport now. And, it's really fascinating. So, yeah, I think yeah, I think you've given Sumit and me some really good food for thought now, and something that we like. We like being realistic. I think we have a saying to have be more rooted in reality and less emotion.
Yeah.
That's a very good
Choosing
100%.
my words very
I think
carefully.
that's a very good word.
absolutely. I mean,
Learning
I
should
think
never stop, I think.
absolutely. And I mean, how would you sort of? I mean, before we wrap this up, I think just would love to get your thoughts on what do you make of the how would you sort of go on to evaluate the 2023 franchise season? What would sort of be a marker that you would be looking at to see if this to see if WPL season 1 is successful or not, and the same with the IPL as well, back to home in a way after 3 long years, two new teams in this playing. So how do you sort of look at the WPL's first season, and what do you think would be a marker for success for them, and then of course what do you expect from the IPL as well?
Okay, so from any standpoint, I will not judge WPL in any which ways. I will let it be and allow it to just,
Nice.
kind of settle down. No expectations, just settle down. I will watch WPL matches. I will consume the cricket that it is offering me. What do I expect from WPL is not business, no numbers, no revenues, nothing. We'll talk about that 10 years later, right? What I want from WPL is, and listen, we have women from all over the world who will be arriving in India. Women with different sensitivities, sensibilities, cultures, eating habits, everything, right? One varying from the other. What the onus lies upon not just BCCI but India as a society, and Indian cricket as a fraternity, is to ensure that you play good hosts, is to ensure that women from all over the world who are going to be coming to your country feel safe being here and playing cricket, right? And they
Yeah.
continue to fall in love with the idea of coming to India, and continue to
Yeah.
fall in love with the idea of whatever, I mean, making a career here. So I think that's the where you talk about being a good host. I think that's what I would like to see WPL for. Now, coming to business,
Mm,
that's IPL, and that's where we expect it, because that's again already a proven revenue model. Number one,
yeah.
cricket is coming back after 3 years of, kind of a shift because of the pandemic, right? So we're finally going to see a massive home and away season beginning, right?
Yeah.
So crowds are going to start coming back, right? Now, I'll start with a couple things that I have at the top of my mind. Number one,
Sure.
the months that we play IPL in, due is a factor. You cannot wish it away, right? But today, with the kind of technology that is available, I don't think you can just sit beyond the boundary line and say, listen, we can't help it. No, you can. Have you asked for some technology partners of yours? Have you brought a technology partner on board to ask and told them, come, give me a presentation and tell me what can be done? Just thinking aloud, right? I like the BCCI to take their in-house technology based understanding of things the next level. And by that, I don't think doing some selection committee meeting on the metaverse. No, 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 that's not what I'm saying. You actually go out in the field and kind of find an answer to something like this. That's number one. Number two, last year the official partners of the IPL touched the 1,000 crore mark per year in terms of the sponsorship that came in, right? That's
Yeah.
huge pressure. Right now, right, there was a time when a DLF would come, the realtor DLF, and invest in a title for 5 years and look at this from a big picture standpoint. Today, you look at a sponsor that comes in after a year, maximum 2 seasons. The sponsor wants to move on. Why?
Yeah.
Because this is startup
Mm,
money. You look at Upstocks, a fintech company. Upstocks comes in, puts in the kind of money. Why is it putting 60 crore per year? It's putting 60 crore per year because it wants visibility. It wants to, it wants to see a jump in numbers, right? That is why they have come and put in that
yeah.
money. They put in the money keeping that in mind, a year, probably 2 years. Once they have the numbers, they want to exit the space, because it's not because they don't see value in cricket. It's because the value that they were seeing and the returns that they were seeing, they've got what they wanted,
Yeah,
and then they want to
been
move on,
achieved.
right?
Correct. Yeah.
So that phase is fast changing. It's fast changing. Some
Mm.
have a different time frame in mind in terms of how long they want to stay. Some have a shorter time frame in mind. What BCCI needs to do is it needs to up its marketing game. So I did a Twitter thread. I don't know if you all saw that. And I because people had been asking me about BCCI's marketing strategy and the sponsorship space. So I did a thread on that, and I said the way I have looked at BCCI is like that Lala, that Sethji, who used to be sitting on the galla all the time. Now Lalaji was never used to going out and bringing business. Lalaji was sitting with the product of the town, right? So
Yeah.
every customer would come to Lalaji's shop and my bap
लेना है
culture
तो ले
fell.
लो, नहीं तो जाओ.
And Lalaji would be like, Bhaiya, ye dekho, ye now this is the price, whether you want to take it, leave it, your wish, right? Because I've got
Mm,
a
mm.
line battery of outsiders who are interested in my product. Lalaji would never wear a suit, step out and make a PowerPoint presentation and a pitch and say, sir, this is what I'm looking to sell. Would you be interested? Because I'm Lalaji, right? 2023 is going to be the year, perhaps, when Lalaji will have to wear that business suit and go out, because you're going to kind of have to sustain that 1,000 crore pitch that you have brought for yourself. Once you raise the bar and once you kind of, once you set a benchmark, you need to keep matching it all the time. You're not going to be Sergi
Mm.
Bubka without doing that, right? So if you want to be the top of your game, every single time that you raise the bar, you're going to have to live up to it. And now the only way, with business disintegrating until now, the if I was looking at a jersey branding, Team India jersey was the only space I could have. Today, I don't need to block that kind of money for a full year for so much of irrelevant cricket that is being played. I
Correct.
can
Yeah.
just I look at one fourth the price. I can go to a franchise and get
Yeah.
a brand new jersey, kind of made, which will kind of drive my product for the whole year. Apropos of how many months in the year the IPL gets played, right? I have I have those many avenues available. So today, as those 10 elephants have walked into the room,
Mm.
BCCI is just nothing but the 11th elephant in that same room, right?
Oh,
So you look at
yeah.
the way that things are changing. Until now it was like, I'm BCCI and you are my franchisees, and now it is like, we are the IPL, you and we, right? I think
Perfect.
that's the kind of back end mindset that is evolving. People may
Mm.
not actually kind of say this in as many words, but this is where things are headed. And for that reason alone, as much as a Royal Challengers Bangalore executive has to run every single day to meet a client and say that, listen, I have an idea, and this is what we can do with the franchise. So has Scott, the BCCI official, has to do the same thing. Stop
True.
being the lala, go out, find business.
That's a great
That's
way
such a
to.
perfect line. We should have that, Sumit, up on our whiteboard. Stop being the lala, put on your business suit, and start making, yeah, start getting into the business. This is perfect. Wow, this is fascinating. This has been a perfect Sunday chat.
No, it's been incredible. I think what a great way to wrap the episode up. KSR,
Yeah,
thanks a lot for your time and putting on such a brilliant show. I think,
yeah.
as you
We'd love to
said,
have you
it's an
again
every.
if possible. We'd love to.
Yeah,
Sorry?
of course. I mean,
Yeah,
as
I
you said, I
mean,
mean, it's an everyday evolving. It's an everyday sort of evolving space, and it
yeah,
gets exciting with every single update. And I think a big contributor to that are folks like yourselves that keep us all updated and
yeah,
sort of help us
absolutely.
understand how the space evolves. So thank you so much for what you do, and
Yeah,
we
thank
hope you
you.
can come back again to the podcast, and we can do this in person sometime.
Sure. Look forward
Thank you
to
so
it.
much,
I hope
KSR. Thank
glad
you.
you'll enjoy it. Thank you. Pleasure's